Would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he is doing. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, and when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said, we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North
with $1.5
Korea.
billion from China after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two is a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy though, what
No, but
specifically
wait a
are
minute.
you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You said you're going
First
to
of
make them
all,
pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China
Not
paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay,
And now we have a steel
okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden,
Still
your response,
dumping.
please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires for the ball because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is
to
a
talk about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President,
That's a
10 seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician want to see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not a
North
typical
Korea.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
That's why I got elected.
Let's
Get off the subject of China. Let's talk sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you
No.
forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House. Right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was like, look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, Millions of people would be
Okay.
dead right now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat?
Because I make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal, because here's the reason. I made it clear as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get that the Korean Peninsula should be a nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
They tried
Very
to meet
quickly,
with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him.
Yep.
He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I gotta give you a
They
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's okay. You know what, North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people have said, having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have to
leaders
move
of other
on. We
countries
have a
is a
lot of,
good
we
thing.
have a lot of questions to get to.
Yes. No,
Your
it's
Like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you. We're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you.
He got him with that
That's
one.
why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And
let's
didn't
move on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk
He
about
left
American
me a
families.
mess, President.
President Trump, okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to
2
all
or
of our
3 months,
questions tonight.
there was a very dangerous period of my first 3 months before we
Move
sort of worked
him.
things out a little bit.
Turn
It
him
was a
off.
very They
Turn
left
him
us
off.
a mess. And
Turn
Obama
him
would be, I think, the first to say it was the single
Mom.
biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is healthcare, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and healthcare is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better healthcare, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful healthcare. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better healthcare, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private healthcare. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families. under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on healthcare, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your healthcare plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option, become Biden care. Public option is an option that says that if you in fact do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically enroll, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I did not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we waited since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions.
That's right.
What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden.
right.
It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to that?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're, the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose.
Yeah, that's silly.
That makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable healthcare. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who in fact are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives. And this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like he went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking. And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way,
But somebody should ask the question.
you can ask.
He goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking. There
we
will
do
be
have a
no
number of,
fracking.
we have a number of topics.
No, but that's a
to.
big-
We
that's a
have-
big question.
We're gonna get to.
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will in fact provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on healthcare. Not a thing.
Houston, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine. And when he, and healthcare, when he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroying, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay,
It
let's let Vice President Biden
impossible to work.
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President Biden
Very
respond.
confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023
Right,
with
I read
no
that.
way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So no, I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of,
seconds,
he
Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right,
But
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that
Let me,
when they
Mr.
announced-
President, I have to move on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
gonna
will
have time to
boom.
talk
Hey folks,
If I'm
public
elected,
option
if he's elected,
means
the stock
government
market
funded,
will
but it
crash.
gives you the
Okay.
option of
Move on
having
to the
it
next question.
or a private carrier or private
The
medicine.
idea
It's
that
not
the stock market
socialized
boom is
medicine.
his only measure of what's
Take a look
happening.
at this.
Where I come from in Scranton and Claremont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All
And
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short
We're
period of
gonna-
time before he
okay,
even knew
we're
it.
going to move on to
And he
the next
left. And
question.
the people of Pennsylvania.
Let me
will
move
shoot
on
you
to my
down.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a
Nancy,
date called
Nancy's
November 3rd.
running
Nancy
things now.
Pelosi does
Yeah,
not
Nancy's
want to
the
approve
president of the
it.
United
Oh,
States.
yeah.
Do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans and it's gone through, including the Democrats. In all fairness, this one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President,
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why ain't he talking to his Republican friends?
let me follow up with you, Vice President.
We made a
Biden,
deal.
because let me
Republicans
ask
will
Vice President Biden the question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there.
That's right.
And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets, the states that have to balance their budgets, and then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter
The
with
bill that
these
was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these kids. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. we were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right, I want
If
to.
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm gonna be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're gonna start laying off, whether they're red or blue.
Yep,
Cops,
that's right.
firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses
Yes.
and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum
I
wage.
do, because I think one of the things we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not gonna be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. It's not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to
Let me
immigration,
very
but I
quickly,
want
you
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York.
She's not
New
handling
York
this
is
too well.
different from
She's not.
Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
We have to
recently.
help. It's very important. We have to help our
She
small
just let
businesses.
it come
How
all
are you
over her.
helping your small businesses when you're
They
forcing
do
wages?
that.
What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said
Not
that
true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal
Say
minimum
it.
wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really like,
administration?
in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, every in different places, I know different places, they're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would
Okay,
be
President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick
No
response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about
So-
immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally and they come in through.
But how will you
me
reunite these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let
families,
me just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper. There was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes,
with
we're
their
working
families?
on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border
Yep.
to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. They real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it, we changed the policy.
Your response
They
to
did
that?
it,
We
we changed.
did not.
They built the
separate
cages.
They,
Who built the cages, Joe?
let's talk about
Who
what
built
we're
the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal.
Yep.
It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say
it.
this,
in
they
10
went down, we
seconds, and
brought
then I need to
reporters,
ask you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some of
I've
them
gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration
He
policy,
is cold,
Mr. Vice
you know?
President.
He
The
does
Obama
not care.
administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they're going to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President Trump,
He
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed without having a specific, we got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up.
Right.
For a
So
hearing.
they got released.
This is the first president in the
Catch
history of the
and
United
release.
States of America that's anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration of the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Yeah.
They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump,
Very,
let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know the
section.
law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check
Check
it
it
out.
out.
They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
You have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk
said
about
good.
our next section,
Did you hear
which
that?
is race in America.
Did you hear
And
what
I
he
wanna
said?
talk about the way Black and Brown Americans
He said
experience
good.
race in this country. Part of that experience is something called
Can I get that real
withdrawal.
quick?
It happens regardless
Ma,
of class.
can I get that
and
real quick?
income. Parents who feel
I
they
just-
have no choice
I gotta-
but to prepare.
I couldn't believe that. My ears, I could not,
Well, check it out.
listen, I can't believe what I just heard. Biden said he had 525 kids at the, and they don't, listen to this. This is unbelievable. Folks, I just want to make sure I just heard what I heard. Hold on a second. Listen to this.
They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
You have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be in Boston.
Go ahead.
All right.
Oh, he said go ahead. Okay, he said go ahead. Not good. Go ahead. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I'm glad I didn't hear. I'm glad he didn't say it. He said go ahead. Okay, sorry.
Race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street, making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said it, super predators. And they kept never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform.
What did you do? Do you know what he did?
Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture. And everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding. And I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I say colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're gonna talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
Mayor?
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date, when he said it, not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact that 20 people, he commuted 20 people sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people sentences, over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that in fact initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you? When you were vice president, you keep talking about all these things you're going to do, and you're going to do this. But you were there just a short time ago, and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. Character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're
If
going to
this
have
stuff
follow-up.
is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from him.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I have
you've
to
just,
respond to that.
please,
Because look,
very quick.
there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
got it.
exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're going?
exactly what.
This is
so,
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I
Russia.
want to stay on the issue of race,
You have
okay?
to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that Black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
What do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know.
by
I
that
mean, I don't know
video?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of Black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire, every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists.
Right.
He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims.
Right.
He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
You made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said you're Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm
I
saying,
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
oh God.
that 10 men in jail.
All right,
You know what? They
ask
remember
Vice
it because
President
if
Biden
you look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden.
you treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do.
But
That's what I'm going to get done.
Because
Because I
that
think
was
maybe
racist.
the American people have
That
now
was
seen
really
that in fact
racist.
it was a mistake
I
to pass
remember
those
that
laws
one.
related to drugs.
But at the
They were
time,
not
everybody
in the
wanted it. I worked for
But why
Elihu when he
didn't
was
he
mayor
get
of
it?
Oakland.
See, it's all talk. No
I don't know of a
action
black
with
mayor that didn't
politicians.
want it.
Why didn't he get it then? That's
I'm
what
sure
I'm
he
going to
didn't
do
want
when
it.
I become
No, he did.
president. You were vice president.
They all wanted it
along
because
with
of the
Obama
crime
as
level
your
at the time. It was
presidential
really
leader
bad.
For 8 years.
That's
Why
what
didn't you
people
get it
seem to
done?
forget.
You had
It was
8
really
years to
bad.
get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We
And the
got
police were outgunned at the time.
We got 38,000 prisoners left.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change this terrible policy.
I
With
just
response
asked
to that, we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why, Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well,
Okay.
you got to talk them into it, Joe.
All right.
Sometimes you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running
wanted
out of
done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world, we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit the emissions, will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
They came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look, their real plan cost $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
Many other
Well, we
things.
have the Vice President respond, and we're running out of time.
Oh, he's
A lot of
nuts.
questions to get to. So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more
I
questions.
don't know where he comes from. Howard comes up with these numbers.
Wait,
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was, endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe. And they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
excuse me.
please
We are
respond and then I have
We
to
are
follow.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a
Solar.
scientist said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're gonna have the greatest economy in the world, but if you wanna kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. And what about fracking?
The truth is in the middle,
Let
folks.
me allow
Both are right.
I
to
never
respond.
said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is,
Show
he's
the web.
flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod. No,
Excuse me, he was against fracking, he said it, I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking, until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania, he'll be against it very soon, because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said, no fracking or oil on federal
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on
That is a big statement, because I would stop,
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, but you
That's a
can't
big
do that.
statement.
Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. You won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to the oil industry?
We actually do
All
look
right.
at the solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania?
That does bother
Vice
me.
President Biden, let me
Because
get
the only
10
thing
seconds
about
to
the
respond,
whole
and I have to get to
Democratic
the
thing that
final
bothers
question.
me
Vice
is
President Biden.
they need to lighten up with that
Takes
stuff
everything out of
because
context, but the point
they
is,
need to say we'll
we
apply
have to
technology
move
to make
toward
it cleaner,
a
but
net
don't talk about
zero
wiping people's
emissions.
jobs out.
The first
That's why we
place to do
lose all
that
the
by
time.
year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question.
China to
Vote.
do it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our
rejoin
final
Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right, this is about leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you.
We have to make a country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, etc. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, number one in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone.
Don't forget to
Have a
vote,
great
folks.
night. Thank you.
What you think, man?
So there you have it, a much more coherent debate compared to that first matchup.
Well, folks, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought that Biden was great. I'm not. The whole oil thing bothers me because you don't ever want to say my background's in economic development. That's what I went to school for. You know, you don't want to say to people that you're going to throw them out of their jobs.
He didn't say that.
I understand he didn't say that, but it's like he says we're not going to subsidize oil, and that's how you keep jobs going. You can say I'll pay money. Well, I can't help that. That's where I live. But, you know, all anybody has to do is say we will apply the latest technology
He already said that. I heard him say that.
Okay, to make it clean, you know. But leave it at that. This either or, like renewable energy or not, it's a false dichotomy, you know.
can
So
Right now, we
relax
gotta
for the
deal with
night.
the
They can
pandemic,
exhale.
and
Yeah.
right now, we've gotta,
He didn't set
with the
himself on
immigration
fire tonight like he did at the first debate. I mean, he did lie like Pinocchio, and I'm sure Daniel Dale will get to that in the fact-checking section. But beyond that, it's fair to say I think President Trump got in a couple clean hits when it came to Vice President Biden, when it came to the 1994 crime bill, when it came to Joe Biden being in politics for so long. He even probably fed some raw meat to his base successfully using Breitbart, Fox lingo that most voters have no idea what he's talking about. But he got those shots in there, however, based in reality, they are. The problem for the president, as I see it, is twofold. One, Joe Biden did fine. He had a fine performance. He definitely reached the
Joe
threshold.
Biden didn't make a
And
mistake,
given
though.
that so much of
He
this
was
election
still
is a referendum
on
on
point.
Donald Trump, and he
You know,
is
you
the
might-
underdog.
I might have
For
a,
the
He didn't
polls,
lie
Joe
on
Biden's
it.
ahead.
he didn't
Joe
lie.
Biden did
He
nothing
came
to
up as
disqualify
presidential.
himself. It was a fine performance.
He should be
And the
president.
second problem is that Joe Biden scored points. He got his licks in
Tons
on
of them.
issues that I think might affect voters more when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, when it comes to healthcare and the fact that
Right.
the Trump administration has not offered any sort of viable alternative to Obamacare. And then there was that rough moment that had to do with the fact that of the child family separation policy, there are still more than
See, Joseph
500
gets
kids
what I
that
was
the Trump
saying, Lai.
administration has
He
not
was
been able
saying,
to place back with the
we don't
parents
need to
whose
invest.
arms they
We do
snatched
need to
them
invest
from.
in solar and
I
other
think at the end
environmental
of
friendly
the day,
industries, but I hear you. Don't
Dan,
want to repeat what Clinton
the race
did
is
and not say what you would put in place something of something you're taking. Yeah, you don't want to say to somebody you don't want to make them think you're going to take their job, because at the end of the day, you win the elections by what, to the degree to which you promise you're going to make people money. Because people need money to survive. So if you're not going to, if you don't have an answer for that, you shouldn't go the other direction. That's my issue with this. And, you know, we've had our climate change for 20 years now. We've been here.
What we thought
Whole,
about the first
glacial
presidential debate. And this was a
formations melting away. It's been going on for some time. And the reason it's getting warmer in our planet is because there's more people. There's more of us. Okay, there's more people. Let me show you something to make my point here. As far as that population growth and climate change, there's a
got off course talking about things.
something I want you to see here in the form of images. Okay, and
but
here
Donald
is
Trump listened to his advisors.
a set of them.
I talked to a lot of
And
them going into the debate.
It goes
They told
like
me
this,
exactly
right here.
what they were trying to get him to do.
This
which
is the,
just like they did the last time. He didn't listen
right
last
there,
time.
okay?
He did this time. For the
All
most
of these
part. But you know what?
maps.
So did Joe Biden. He did what he practiced to do.
These charts
Yeah,
are
and
variations
honestly, this
on
debate
population
is
growth
just
and climate
the
change.
same content from the first debate, except that now you could understand
In particular,
what people are saying. And
this
so in
one
that respect, it was better because people could
talks about
the
global
really
population growth
evaluate
and
the
carbon
differences
dioxide
between what was being
emissions.
said. But in
See how they
terms of
go
the
together?
substance of what was being said, the president fell into some of the same patterns.
Let's take the other.
Continued to downplay the virus and the effect of this
Okay.
upswing that the country is currently
Look
in
at that.
right now, heading in
Look at that, folks.
to the holiday season. He
Okay.
kept doing
See
something
that?
that I think Joe Biden actually tried
Right
to
here.
exploit, which is
All right.
dividing the country into red states and blue states. Repeatedly
Human
talking
population
about
growth.
the red states or the blue
Okay.
states are doing this and the blue
So-
states
Your
are doing this,
Democrats,
and
your Democrat governor.
want
Here's
that.
another one.
And if you watch the ads that are on television,
U.S. population
for the Biden
growth
campaign right
projections.
now, the message right
Okay.
now is not about
That's the United States alone.
coronavirus. It's not about fracking. It's not about any of those things. It's about
This is-
unity. It's about bringing the country together. And you saw Joe Biden repeatedly saying, I'm not going to do that. I think the president really walked back into that trap because if you listen to him day to day, like we all do, you hear the same content that he gives off in all of his interviews, in his media gaggles. It happened on the debate stage in a calmer tone, but it still isn't bridging the gap with the voters in the
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the president has been lying about the coronavirus pandemic since February. I mean, just straight up lying about it. It's going to be over by Easter. I could go through them, but you get the point. And we cover this every day. The three of us and all of the journalists at CNN cover this. And the truth of the matter is the president did it again tonight. He said we're turning the curve. We're not going into a dark winter. The vaccine's going to be here in weeks. None of this is true. Every health expert, including health,
to criticize Fauci.
every health expert, including those in his administration, Anderson, every single one says what Joe Biden said tonight. And they all say that what President Trump said tonight to the American people is not true. And this is the fundamental problem with the president's pitch, is that the country can see that he's lying about the pandemic.
Yeah, and so many people in this country have already voted and will vote by election day. Well, let's go to our team standing by, David Axelrod, just for everybody's quick take. What you think?
voting tomorrow. Fundamentally, if you're ahead and you get a draw.
So there you go, folks.
Both of them were better than they were last time, but I thought that Joe Biden held his own, and that's all he had to do.
So anyway, I think,
the trajectory of this race did not.
I get the
change, and
impression a lot of
as you
people have
pointed out,
voted,
he did some big business.
or
in terms of
if they haven't voted already, they know
American
which direction they're going to
president
go in.
and swiping at Trump for being so.
And what I come-
partisan and talk about red and
where I
blue
come
states
down
and
is
so on. I thought those
the
were
president's
powerful
really
points, and it's one of
put
the
this
reasons
country in a
why
bad footing, and it was
he's
already
in.
at that place before the pandemic.
I agree
And
with David.
yeah, the
I
economy was
think
humming, but
that
people
Biden
were
was sharper tonight than he was at the last debate. Maybe
at
that
each
was
other.
because he wasn't given
That was
much
because
of a
of him.
chance. But I do think he scored some points really against against Trump, particularly on immigration when they were talking about the children in cages.
Yeah, the children in cages thing. Let's see how you did on Twitter.
They are
Speaking
so
of which.
well taken care of.
Yeah, he
It
said
was
there.
just-
Oh, well
it's a
taken care
lie,
of. I
and
thought,
B,
oh, you're
the
kidding
statement
me.
itself
Hey,
is
everybody,
just
welcome
so
to Zenny
stunning
62.
to me that I couldn't believe that someone would really say that.
Okay.
And then, I'm just looking over the whole debate. Overall, what the president was trying to do is present himself as the outsider, talking about you politicians, when in fact, he's been running the country for the last 4 years. And I thought that was pretty striking also.
Yeah, no, I
because it also
haven't.
wasn't true.
August the
Senator
21st
Santorum
was
did a lot.
8 years ago.
Yeah, he sure
So,
did.
folks,
He
here's
delivered that.
Twitter.
You guys watched a different debate.
So
than I
let's
did.
the,
and certainly from everything I'm hearing from my folks, I mean, that you guys watched a very different debate. I think Donald Trump was right on his game. I actually think that he completely skewered Joe Biden. You mentioned the point where he called Biden a politician looking in the camera. I think every time after that, everyone thought about that.
I just want to know how much
looking
vodka
in the camera,
Rick
being a
Santorum
typical
had to drink
politician.
before he said that.
The
So
other thing, and I'll be curious to see how many people pick up on this. Joe Biden, at the end of the
here are
looking
the
at
Twitter
his watch.
trends, folks. You
If
can see
recall
the
campaign with George
Make Dogs Day
H.W.
debates,
Bush, look
debate
at his
tonight.
watch because he
Daniel
was sweating
Jones,
it
New York
out.
Giants,
And I think
did
that's
something
what a
well.
lot
We'll
of
get to
people
that
are
in a
saying,
second.
Joe Biden was bobbling
Kristen
a little,
Welker,
little shaky at the end, and looking at his watch to see when
Coyotes.
it was over. I think that's
Tell you
going
about
to be a
some
meme
others.
out of this debate.
Hey, look,
Carson
I
Wentz
think
threw his
Donald
10th
Trump did
interception
his
of the year
best ever,
as this was
and
going
his best
on.
was not good enough.
China,
Bottom line, it was the same
Republican
stuff,
Congress,
just
Obamacare,
a little bit less volume on it.
Abe
But
Lincoln,
no plan for the future.
Trump
A big
meltdown,
apology for a bunch of failures, and
Scranton,
then smacking at Joe Biden all the time. But
Poor
he
Boys,
literally
as
did
opposed to
nothing
Proud
that he
Boys.
has always done. He sounded better.
Did
He
Trump,
looked better, but there was nothing there. There was nothing there. And
North
some of the stuff
Korea.
he said,
See, everybody thought what I
agree with
thought.
Goya.
That Trump said
shocking lack
good
of
when he
humanity
said, let's,
that he
go on,
demonstrated,
all right?
talking
But
about
he did.
those
He said,
children.
North
And
Korea,
no apology. I mean, a human
Central
being
Park
just would have said,
Fire.
hey,
Right.
I can't sleep at night thinking about those kids.
Right.
I'm doing everything I can for
Right.
those kids. For him to sit up there and lie and say they're being treated well was horrific. It was
horrific.
inhuman.
It was
And
inhuman,
I
yeah.
disagree with you, Senator. Whenever I just disagree with you. Whenever Joe Biden looked in the camera and cut through the crap and started talking about real stuff, I think it did land.
Yeah.
Number one, we're not keeping kids in cages anymore, and the bottom line is Trump, I think, very effectively said, "Who built the cages?" And the reality is, Joe Biden built the cages, not Donald Trump.
Barbaric ways. Who used them in horrific, barbaric ways?
I agree, but he was talking
in the
about
nostrils of God. If you want to talk about what's happening to those children and what's happening to those families, we can talk about it. But yes, in fact, those things they were never used in the way that the Trump administration has used them, and the horrific abuses. I don't think that you guys want to have this conversation with the American people.
What Donald Trump was talking about is how those children are being taken care of now, not how they were taken care of then. I think everyone agrees how they were taken care of then was reprehensible, and it's no longer taking place. Just like the people who built the cages probably wouldn't have built them again today.
I know a lot more about this than you do, Senator. Those children are still in very nasty situations. A lot of people, the way that they are deliberately dehumanizing people at the border in this country is a stench in the nostrils of God. It is one of the worst things.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a different issue. Listen, this president showed no humanity for those children.
Right.
Not one scrap of humanity. You would have said, anybody would have said, I can't sleep at night. I care about these kids. He couldn't pull it off.
He said
he doesn't care.
What he said was, Van, is they're taking good care of these children. That's what he said.
It's not true.
Humanity that we wanted to take care of those children.
Where's his plan?
Rick, can I just to Gloria's point? And you said he attacked him for being a politician, and he was very effective there. What does it feel like to you when he stands up there and says, we're going to have a big, beautiful healthcare plan? That he's been saying that for 5 years. It was the classic politician.
It was his worst answer of the night.
When he tries to unload all of this Giuliani stuff on Biden and ends up in a long whine about his tax returns and how he's been mistreated by the IRS and he can't release his tax returns. I mean, the fact is he can say, you're a politician and I'm not, but he behaved like a politician. I agree that he was far better than he was. And if I were you, I would be giddy too, because you had to defend that performance and you didn't. No, you didn't do it. You didn't. I give you that. He was much, much better tonight. But there were these moments that reminded people exactly what bothers them about him. And some of them were about where he talked about the Biden wanting blue state bailouts and talking about how the blue states are doing badly on coronavirus, which is patently untrue. The whole country is suffering through the same thing. And every time Biden got to say, I am running to be an American president, not the president of my base, I think that he rang up points with those voters who might be thinking one way or the other.
I got to get a quick break in. Here's what to look for tonight as we break down the debate.
It's the season.
Hey, folks.
To life out here.
Yeah, Biden won. But looking at the Twitter results, just continuing that, we have Poor Boys, and I'm curious to see what this did Trump thing was.
Prepare for those shorter days
and
cooler nights.
I'm waiting for this to open. It says, did Trump just say that raising the minimum wage isn't helping? He did say that. Wrong. Did Trump just say he's been treated worse than the Boston Tea Party?
He scored points on was Joe Biden talking about wanting to get off fossil fuels in 2030. I'm not sure the exact year in the 2030s.
Yeah. So for the man who's not a politician and is an outsider, is not making a play for the state of Pennsylvania, because fracking is a big issue there. Right, Rick Santorum, you know that. So the politician was making a play for the state of California, and Joe Biden has said, you have to, he is for keeping fracking now, but eventually in the distant future, obviously you have to phase it out. It made a huge point about the president made a huge point about that. But where I thought he really lost his way because he has no answer is healthcare. Because, he kept saying to Joe Biden, you had so many years to do X, Y, and Z. Why didn't you do it? Well, the president had so many years, if he hated Obamacare and is repealing Obamacare and is in the Supreme Court trying to get rid of Obamacare, why haven't they replaced it with anything? There is no answer for that, Rick.
Well,
other than Republicans can't agree on what they want.
First up, I agree with you. It was a pathetic answer and frankly, he's had a pathetic answer. I just wrote an op-ed today in the Hill with one of his former healthcare advisors saying, hey, you have an answer, Mr. President. Actually, conservatives have put forward a plan that actually will reduce premiums and increase the number of uninsured, increase the number of insured, and do all the things that you want to do. Please endorse it. So I'm as frustrated as most Republicans are. I haven't. I'm as frustrated. But here's the bottom line. What the president doesn't talk about is that Medicare premiums are down 30% since the beginning of this term. Prescription drug premiums for Medicare Part D are down 12% since the beginning of this term. Why he doesn't go out and talk about the successes of actually lowering Obamacare premium, broadening the market for people as a result of Obamacare, and some of the things he's done. But you're right. As long as he doesn't have a plan, he's in trouble with answering that question.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, man, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, and then he
Racist toward Obama, that's fine. He could actually work with that
No
plan.
regrets looking back. He's standing on the graves of 250,000 Americans with no regrets looking backwards, and then no plan going forward. So what does he do? He covers up that failure.
Yep.
He covers up all those deficits by attacking Hunter Biden and trying to dirty up Biden. And no president who was proud of his past 4 years would ever mention Hunter Biden or any of that stuff. They would be doing exactly what you're saying, pounding away on the successes. The reality is you have a president who knows that he has a colossal failure and he has to distract Americans by attacking somebody that nobody believes is corrupt and nobody believes is a bad person. And he wasted a lot of time on that tonight. A lot of time on that.
Yeah, he's right. Hey, folks, you asked me to look at Stephanie Rule. This was what she came up with. Godfather says my approach point.
Trump was bearing down on him about socialized medicine, and people who have their health care.
Trump plan is Stephanie Rule said,
and he said, I think
arguing that he paid his taxes millions of dollars. What smart business person would prepay that much money?
He said, he's running against Joe Biden.
That's a good one.
I beat all those people because I disagreed with him on this issue. And he's
that's a good
right
one.
about that.
Let's see here. Going back to
that preserved,
where we were in history.
That preserved private health care
Trump.
that builds on the Affordable Care Act. And I thought that was an important piece of business for him, for any voter out there who is confused by Trump's rhetoric.
I remember that because I was not really for Bernie Sanders. That's why I was glad that Biden got in. So it brings it all back down to the point of why you like Biden and why you wanted him in there. And I was hoping like Callie won out. I didn't. The vice president he's got, I thought, well, she's okay, but she don't have the experience. We're in such trouble. We need somebody with some fucking experience in there. And this is how I felt about that.
That's not why the public option wasn't in there.
So I am going to give them $7
because there were a
tomorrow.
few Democrats with ties to the insurance industry.
This one is funny. It says, Biden, show us your taxes. Trump. Why don't you? Biden. I did. Trump. That's hilarious.
There's enormous public support for this. Enormous. Just as there's enormous public support for the Affordable Care Act. 55%, I think, in a poll today.
Andrew Gillum asked, did Trump just pull the I have a black friend card?
Side of this issue, if you want to be on the side of the
This is the funniest one. This is the one that says, did Trump just say he's the least racist person in the room? He did. And
nationally, national polls.
he said, this is what I thought. He asked, this is what I thought. He said, did Trump just say good in response to 545 kids being in cages not knowing what their futures are? He didn't say good. I went back to hear that, folks. He said, good, move on. He said, let's move on. But the way it came out is it sounded like good. And you had to actually go back to hear what he said. Because I wanted to get that on video. I actually have that.
Much better business model. The energy companies themselves are talking about this transition.
I actually,
but for Joe Biden, not ducking.
on video, I actually recorded that. Okay.
Occurs in an election where he's looking at Texas, as the senator just said, where he's looking at a Pennsylvania. That's the thing about Joe Biden. He actually believes in some stuff. He's willing to take some stands on some stuff. And they're frankly more about putting up solar oil rigs in the next several years. And he's willing to make that case as well. I'm very proud of Joe Biden.
All right, Vice President, then we're going to move on to the next section. I'll tell you another thing that came out of Joe Biden's mouth that was kind of surprising to me because it was so stunning and frank, and we hear all this back and forth. We're going to move on to our next section.
Justice reform. I had talked Democrats into
Gentlemen, we're running out of time, so we've got to get on to climate change.
Trump didn't get the
You both
joke
have
and got very angry, but he said, you're one of the most racist presidents in modern American history, period. And Donald Trump was talking about the 94 crime bill and all the rest of it. We know the history of that. We don't have to go through that again. But he made a statement, sort of a blank statement here. And he said, this guy's dog whistle is about as big as a foghorn, period. And we're used to that kind of language, I guess, in this campaign. But one candidate just called the other candidate a racist. And,
he is a racist.
You know, it's not
So
out of
you
the
can make
ordinary.
the argument, Gloria.
It's not
You can make the argument, Gloria, that Joe Biden got in the gutter, and Donald Trump didn't in this.
Well, no, I won't make that argument. I won't make that argument.
Because I think he did.
I won't make that argument because I think that.
Because Donald Trump is racist.
I think there are reasons to believe that it is true.
Nobody,
Yes,
nobody
absolutely.
called Donald Trump a racist before he was president of the United States.
And
No.
What?
and-
He's nuts. Oh, he is absolutely nuts.
Other than the Central Park thing, the Central Park thing actually is 5 human beings' lives who were sent to prison, convicted for crimes that they did not commit, and he refuses. I mean, you know that, right?
And
Yeah.
also he said,
What a stupid thing for him to
justice
say.
reform. Well, I really wanted
You don't
that. We'll
know
talk to
this
Van
guy in the
Jones
corner. He's worse
about
than
how they
Trump.
had to talk
He's
this
running for
president into the kind of into that kind of reform that he went into this kicking and screaming, and screaming.
Rick, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about him refusing to condemn the Proud Boys.
Right.
So, I mean, it isn't as if Gloria is pulling that out of the air. This has been part of the president's political project. He does dog whistle, and he does stand down when he's called on to condemn racist organizations, and that has been a problem for him, and you know that as well. It makes you uncomfortable as well.
This is a complicated thing here. First of all, the right wing always says nobody called him a racist before he was president. It's just not true. Once he started on the birther thing, that shocked a lot.
That was 2011. Yeah.
Donald Trump had been a supporter of civil rights causes. In fact, Donald Trump had been a supporter of Kamala Harris, believe it or not. But when he went down the road of the birther thing, that changed his relationships with the black community. That it did. And then since then, he's trying to do two things that don't go well together. He's trying to put together a peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. On the one hand, he has done good stuff on criminal justice, on opportunity zones, and on black colleges. That's true. But he's also appealed to white supremacist organizations.
He's trying to get elected.
And so what continues to happen is, I think that campaign wants credit for the good stuff they've done, and they don't take responsibility for the horrific climate that they have emboldened and helped in this country. If you are a black parent or a parent of color trying to raise your kids in this environment, you do not appreciate the role that Donald Trump has played in poisoning the atmosphere. And so the two things can be true at the same time, but we will find out in a few days if this coalition they're trying to build, on the one hand doing some good things for African Americans, but then emboldening our worst enemies is a good strategy. I think it's not a good strategy.
Yeah, the reality is that the black community prior to COVID had the lowest unemployment rate, lowest poverty rate. I mean, you can't make up what he has done in focusing in on minority communities and trying to do things that particularly lift them up and spend time and effort, do lots of events at the White House, I mean, look, this is not just, a talking point. He's done the work and he's not getting credit for it. And to do the work and then at the same time be called a racist, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Stop.
There are two things that can be true at the same time. I appreciate the fact that they have done some reach out. I appreciate the fact that they have been trying to grow their party out. Frankly, it makes the African American community in a much better position when both parties are taking our campaign seriously.
That's true.
So I appreciate that. But the problem is, what you guys don't want to take responsibility for, is that first of all, he lied on Obama's record. Obama did do stuff on criminal justice reform, the Fair Sentencing Act, clemency, and in fact, the Department of Justice under Obama did a lot of good things on criminal justice.
They pardoned 1,150 people who had low-level drug crimes and had no business in jail. Obama got them all, commuted all their sentences.
This is complicated stuff. And then when you just want to try to politicize it, I think it's not right. I don't think most African Americans feel that we have a president that really understands the pain that we're going through and the damage that he is doing to the climate of the country. Has Trump not got fair credit for some stuff he's done? Yeah, but it's his own fault. It's his own fault because the stuff that he does that pollutes the atmosphere.
Right. And then he has to turn around and undo it.
I
Yeah.
want to go to Daniel Dale with his first fact check of the night. Oh, excuse me. Let's go to Wolf. Wolf.
Art Anderson, thanks very much. Excellent discussion. Daniel Dale has got his first fact check of the night here, and he's going to be doing plenty of them over the next few hours of our special coverage. Daniel, let's start with the big picture on how much the candidates got right or wrong tonight.
This was funny.
Well, President Trump was better behaved tonight, but he lied more. This was just dishonesty, much of which we've heard before at his campaign rallies, about subjects big and small, important stuff like the coronavirus pandemic, about Biden's policies, about his own record, about Democrats' record. It was just on and on. Biden was imperfect. There were at least a few false, misleading, or lacking in context claims from him. But for a fact checker, you're kind of sitting there with Biden. Occasionally, you're like, "Oh, that's wrong." With Trump, you're like that I Love Lucy episode in the Chocolate Factory. You know, you don't know which one to pick up because there's just so
Too many of them.
So again, with this president, we just see a constant barrage incessantly of false or misleading stuff.
You know, Daniel, the president's handling of the pandemic certainly was a major topic. Certainly during the first part of this debate, the president claimed that at one point that 2.2 million Americans were initially expected to die from the coronavirus. Listen to this.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China.
He couldn't keep up with it, so he gave it a figure himself.
Accurate?
I knew what was going on.
It's a real figure, but Trump falsely describes it, and he's continued to do this at his rallies. Now, what this figure said, it was a report from British academics, and it said that in the U.S., if no U.S. government did anything to mitigate the virus, to fight the virus, and no citizen took social distancing action, then we could see 2 million plus deaths. But this was not an expectation. It was not a realistic estimate. This was a figure put out there to say, this is how bad it gets if you just let this virus run its course.
He said, I'm going to make it so big I won't be disappointed.
Let's listen to a claim made by the president, Daniel, about the state of the coronavirus pandemic right now. Listen to this.
It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
All right, President keeps insisting the virus is going away. It clearly is not going away. The numbers are off.
It's not going away. Wolf, I did an analysis. I found the president had said between February and October 10th, Trump had said 38 times that it was going away. It was wrong 8 months ago, and it's wrong today. Look, as he said, the numbers are terrible. We're now back above 60,000 confirmed new cases per day. The president doesn't like to use this metric of cases. He dismisses it. Well, hospitalizations are also rising. They're setting records in many states. And sadly, deaths are now rising again, as they usually do with a lag after cases start rising. So we're not rounding any turn. It's not going away. Things are getting worse in the United States.
1,100 Americans died just yesterday in one day. Daniel, we're going to be getting back to you. I know you're doing a lot more fact checking. Jake, over to you.
Thanks, Wolf. And I think one of the things that we need to talk about is, in addition to coronavirus, the manner in which President Trump talks about this, because this is obviously something that is affecting all of us, even if we haven't lost somebody to COVID. And Vice President Biden tried to address people who have specifically lost people, and there are more than 223,000 Americans who have died from this. And that is just the concept of empathy, because that is what the Biden people keep hitting, what Joe Biden keeps hitting. And it is an area that Donald Trump is not able to communicate effectively at all, if he even possesses it, which I'm not sure. And we saw it time and time again during this debate, talking about, very cold-heartedly about the more than 500 kids who were separated from their parents as a policy by the Trump Department of Justice. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, enacted it. And how they haven't been able to find their parents. And then you also just heard things about like people being deported, undocumented immigrants being deported and not coming back for their court date. And then President Trump said, except for some with the lowest IQs, and just the inability to talk about what we're all going through, even if it's just your kids are struggling because they're learning on their computers.
Right. The key moment that really encapsulated the president not understanding how to empathize on the coronavirus was that he repeated, as he often does, we're learning to live with it. And then Joe Biden came back and said, actually, we're dying with it. And I think that really was the moment on the virus that encapsulated how this president only wants to focus on reopening, doesn't want to acknowledge the sacrifices that the American people have made, that I know many of the president's advisors and supporters would like him to do, because the vice president does it. When he talks about coronavirus, he says, you know, I want to thank the American people for doing all that you've done all of these months.
You're talking about Vice President Pence.
Vice President Pence.
Yeah.
President Trump almost never does it, but I want to add one more to your list. He was asked directly, do you understand why Black families have the talk? The president literally never answered the question and never attempted to answer the question. That could have been a moment for him to say something, to do something, to change the
But this is from, remember, he made fun of her. He yelled at her in front of other press people, told her the question she asked was dumb.
Have more depth behind it, and he refused to take
and said he.
No, that was during the period where he picked not one, not two, but three Black female anchors to embarrass that week.
Female.
She was one of them.
Color.
I'm pretty sure
And that's why I thought, you know, how can Jason Whitlock go on and interview him?
Bring another point, which was really interesting to me, frankly, about empathy and about the coronavirus, which the president wrapped that all into one bow. And when Biden did his thing where he looked into the camera and said, I know there are people out there who are missing somebody at the table, somebody who doesn't have somebody at home, you know, going to sleep. The president attacked him for being a typical politician.
It was for the, this isn't about my family, it's not about his family, it's about your family.
Right, but he was having an empathetic moment.
Right.
And what the president did was try to call him out and saying, that's, to use Biden's term, that's malarkey, that's not real. He's just being a politician. I don't know that people are going to buy that, because even if you're not really a big fan of Joe Biden's policies, he is genuinely empathetic. He means that. And so what Trump was trying to do globally for the whole 90 minutes was to say, you know, I might be the president of the United States, I might live in the White House, but I'm still the disruptor, and he's the longtime politician. And the fact that he took it that far in that moment was risky.
It's interesting you say that. I agree. I think that does sum up the night, both Biden saying that and Trump's response. And I think one of the reasons why, in my view, it did not work, although I'm sure it worked with the MAGA bubble, because they think that anybody that expresses affection for their son or empathy for someone they don't know is weak. But I think that's what it's indicative of. President Trump lives in an atmosphere of disinformation, false information, reinforcing itself. And that's why some of the punches he threw at Joe Biden, I don't think landed, because unless you were Sean Hannity, you probably had no idea what he's talking about.
You need an encyclopedia to understand what is going on, because it's a series of buzzwords that have meaning, perhaps, if you've been studying, the Daily Caller or whatever it is. But if you are just a regular person going about your life, you're not going to understand what rabbit holes the president is going down. So, I noticed in this debate, they were given 2 minutes to give their answers. The president gets a lot of words into his 2 minutes. But when you listen to the words that are coming out, I do wonder how many people at home are really connecting the dots here between the words that he's saying and what it means for them. Because sometimes it does sound like he's trying to get as many of these buzzwords in, these buzz attack words against Biden, but they don't connect with real people. And I think that's where, tonight, you're really left wondering, what did the president really accomplish in terms of advancing his agenda for the next?
Well, and the other thing is, people on his team, and you were saying this earlier, Deanna, people on his team wanted him to talk about the economy tonight. They wanted him to talk about how he's going to be able to bring the economy back to normal after he deals with COVID, even though he's not really dealing with COVID, but that's a separate issue. This is an area where polls indicate he's still competitive with Biden, if not ahead. People do trust him.
The one area.
The one area.
Right, it is the one area. Now,
but all I was going to say is he didn't do it.
No,
he didn't do it. He was off in Breitbart land talking about laptops.
Yeah.
And Americans were worried about food on the table or their kid's not getting a good education, or when is this virus going to be over? They didn't get an answer from him.
Right. I mean, look, let's just be clear. The bar was very low based on
Yeah, so he didn't set himself on fire.
Right, the last
Right.
very, very
Yeah.
low. And so he cleared that low bar. And he did, as I said before, listen to his advisors on some of the tactics that he should use, namely don't interrupt Joe Biden as much or at all, and also to try to pivot as much as he could. But one thing he didn't do that people I talked to who are in his camp on Capitol Hill have said over and over again is not just the economy, but just broadly, what is your goal for your second term? What do you want to do? What are your agenda items? Can you name any? Besides getting the economy back on track, which is not a small thing.
And learning to live with the pandemic.
I mean, but there really aren't a serious agenda items that he can lay out in a very clear way, which is a really important thing if you were asking the American people to get his job back.
You get the distinct impression that the president obviously wishes this race were different. It wishes this race were kind of taking the clock back to January of 2020, before the coronavirus. He hasn't really come to terms with the fact that this is the race that he is in right now. And he can't just say to voters, well, I just want to take the clock back. He's got to figure out how to navigate through
he did talk
this
a lot
new
about
reality that people are living with. One of the key things,
he did not know what to do with this pandemic.
Joe Biden spent a lot of time on, actually, in one of his answers, was about schools.
And he doesn't know how to deal with it, and that's why all these people
they want to know
sick.
how their kids are going to be able to get back
That's
into
just
school.
true. He didn't know how to.
These are the kinds of specifics.
Should have had
that
people
the president
in there.
needs to
He was
walk
firing
through
people instead of
what
having them in their
looks
house
for them,
again.
and not just say,
Because that's
well, the
what he
virus
needed
is
to
coming
do.
and
Is
that
had people.
will be
He
fine.
needed to have people
Well, we need to
helping
live
with
with
it.
it.
I feel sorry for
There was a
him.
much more coherent answer from Biden.
Well, hey, folks,
on that. I thought he'd take
it's
three
been an
things
hour
that he
and
done.
36 minutes of
Even though I
live
do
stream.
think,
Thanks
again,
for
that Biden struggled
sharing your
when Trump
views
confronted him
and
with the question of,
positions.
he's been in politics
And
for 8 years, you were vice president for 8 years. Why
subscribe to
didn't you do that
Zenny62
then? I
if
thought
you haven't
that
done
was
so
the
before,
most
and
effective
bookmark
thing that Trump did.
OaklandNewsNow.com,
I just say
and
one other thing about the
we'll
the
see you
Gates
later,
play,
and I'll do an NFL
like
live
Mark
stream
nonsense
tomorrow
that
night.
Trump's used that, like,
We have some
little
NFL catching up
code
to do.
words that
See ya.